1. Let's dive deeper into this rad 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass that's turning heads on Craigslist. You know, there's something special about these classic rides that just gets the heart racing, and this one's no exception. Picture yourself cruising down the highway, T-tops off, the rumble of that V8 engine singing its sweet nostalgic tune. This isn't just a car, it's a time machine on wheels, taking you back to the golden age of American muscle. But don't think for a second that this is some worn-out relic. Oh no, this Cutlass has been getting some serious TLC. Now I've got to keep it real with you folks. At 154,000 miles, this car has definitely been around the block a few times. But here's the thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing when you're talking about these old-school tanks. These engines were built to last, and with all the recent work that's been done, this Cutlass might just be hitting its stride. Let's talk about that engine for a sec. The 4.3 V8 is a solid power plant, known for its reliability and that classic muscle car grunt. And with a freshly rebuilt transmission, you're looking at a drivetrain that's ready to lay down some serious rubber. The seller's really gone the extra mile here. New valve covers, water pump, spark plugs and cables, rotor cap. The list goes on. It's clear they've put some real love into keeping this beauty running smooth. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sounds great, but what about the looks? Well, the white paint might not be showroom fresh, but it gives this Cutlass that classic, timeless appeal. And let's be honest, a few battle scars just add character to a car like this. It tells a story, you know? At $7,500, it's not exactly pocket change, but for a piece of automotive history that's been this well-maintained, it could be a steal. Plus, with that clean title and automatic transmission, it's a classic you could actually use as a daily driver if you were so inclined. Look, I'm not here to tell you this is the perfect car for everyone. But if you're the kind of person who appreciates the growl of a V8, the feel of rear-wheel drive, and the unmistakable style of a 70s muscle car, this Cutlass deserves a serious look. And hey, if you've got something interesting to trade, the seller's open to offers. Who knows? This could be the beginning of your very own classic car adventure. Remember, folks, cars like this aren't just about getting from A to B. They're about the journey, the memories, and the pure joy of driving. So if you're in the market for a slice of American automotive history, why not give this Oldsmobile Cutlass a shot? You might just fall in love with the open road all over again. 2. Let's dive deeper into this '69 Plymouth Barracuda, because there's a lot more to unpack here, fellow gearheads. This Cuda is a prime example of what we often find in the classic car world, a diamond in the rough. It's got that unmistakable late 60s Mopar styling that just screams muscle car era, even under that primer gray sealer. And let's be honest, there's something exciting about a car in primer. It's like a blank slate, just waiting for you to make your mark. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, 12 grand for a project car? But hear me out. The '69 Barracuda is a sought-after year, and finding one with a clean title isn't always easy. Plus, the seller's already tackled some of the less glamorous but absolutely crucial work. Let's talk about that drivetrain for a second. The 8-cylinder engine paired with an automatic transmission is a classic combo that'll give you that muscle car punch we all love. And the fact that it's a rear-wheel drive? That's just the icing on the cake for anyone looking to do some classic burnouts, in a controlled environment, of course. The sellers put in some serious elbow grease on the mechanical side. That new front end with fresh ball joints, bushings, and idler arm means the bones of this Cuda are solid. The completely overhauled brake system with new front discs and rear drums is a big deal. Safety first, right? And let's not overlook that rebuilt 355 Sure Grip rear end with Dutchman axles. That's a serious upgrade that'll help put the power down when you've got this beast running right. Inside, you've got those classic black bucket seats and a console. Sure, they're described as driver quality, but hey, that just means you can actually sit in them while you're working on the rest of the car. The newer black carpet is a nice touch too. It's those little details that can really make or break a restoration. Now, I've got to level with you. This Barracuda needs work. The body issues, missing headliner, non-working gauges, and potential steering column problems aren't small jobs. But for the right person, that's not a deterrent. It's an opportunity. This is a chance to restore a classic piece of American muscle exactly the way you want it. And let's not forget the extra parts the seller is throwing in. Those new black kick panels with speaker mounts, extra door handles and pads, and various other bits and pieces could save you some serious cash and headaches down the line. Here's the bottom line. This '69 Plymouth Barracuda isn't a car you're going to drive home and show off at the next cruise night. It's a project, a labor of love, and potentially a long-term commitment. But for $12,000, you're getting a solid foundation with a lot of the hard work already done. 3. Let's talk about this 1969 Pontiac Tempest that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,000. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This isn't a pristine show car, but it's a piece of automotive history that's begging for some TLC. First things first, the seller's honest about its condition, listing it as fair, so we know we're dealing with a project car here. The Tempest is sporting a green paint job, which could be original or a respray. It's hard to tell without seeing it in person. Under the hood, you've got a good old American V8, which is always music to a gearhead's ears. It's paired with an automatic transmission, making it a comfortable cruiser when you get it running right. Now here's where things get interesting, and I mean that in the most charitable way possible. The odometer reads 722,344 miles. Yes, you read that right. That's enough miles to circle the Earth about 29 times. Now, whether that's accurate or if the odometer's rolled over a few times is anyone's guess, but it's safe to say this Tempest has seen its fair share of road. Despite the high mileage, it's got a clean title, which is always a plus. But let's be real here. At this price, and with that many miles, you're not buying a daily driver. You're buying a project, a piece of GM history that needs some serious love and attention. The '69 Tempest is a cool car with a lot of potential. It's from an era when American cars were big, bold, and powerful. With the right restoration, this could be a real head-turner at car shows or cruise nights. But make no mistake, getting it there is going to take time, money, and a whole lot of elbow grease. At $12,000, you're not just buying a car, you're buying a challenge, an opportunity to breathe new life into a classic. It's not for the faint of heart or the thin of wallet, but for the right person, someone with the skills, patience, and passion for restoration, this Tempest could be the start of an amazing journey. Just remember, folks, this isn't a car you're going to drive home and show off next weekend. It's a long-term project that'll test your mechanical skills and your patience. But if you're up for the challenge, and you've got a soft spot for old Pontiacs, this '69 Tempest might just be the project you've been waiting for. Just be prepared for a lot of work, a few or more unexpected surprises, and the satisfaction of bringing a piece of automotive history back to life. 4. Let me tell you about this sweet 1973 Ford Mustang Grande that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $8,900. Now, I've got to say, this pony car is looking pretty fine for its age. First off, we're talking about a classic Mustang coupe with that iconic '70s styling. Under the hood, you've got a beefy V8 351 Cleveland engine, a power plant that's music to any muscle car lover's ears. The seller mentions they've rebuilt the carb and put in a new distributor, so it sounds like this Stang is ready to rumble. Now get this, the odometer shows just 93,400 miles, which is pretty low for a car pushing 50 years old. The seller claims these are original miles, and here's the kicker. Apparently, the last owner had this beauty tucked away in her garage for 40 years. Talk about a time capsule. The seller even has the car's history dating back to 1985, which is a nice touch for collectors. Let's talk about the condition. The seller's listing it as excellent, and they're not shy about singing its praises. They say it's got fresh paint in a sleek green color, and here's the holy grail for classic car enthusiasts: no rust. That's a big deal for a car of this vintage, especially if you're in an area where rust is usually an issue. It's got that classic rear-wheel drive setup that Mustang fans love, paired with an automatic transmission for easy cruising. The title's clean, and the tags are good, so you shouldn't have any headaches on the paperwork side. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. While this Mustang sounds like a gem, remember that excellent condition is subjective, especially for a 50-year-old car. It might be worth taking a close look or having a mechanic check it out if you're serious about buying. At $800-900, it's not the cheapest Mustang out there, but for a rust-free, low-mileage example with a V8, it could be a solid deal. Whether you're looking for a weekend cruiser, a show car project, or just a cool piece of American automotive history, this '73 Mustang Grande could be worth checking out. Remember, cars like this aren't just about getting from A to B. They're about the experience, the nostalgia, and the pure joy of owning a piece of muscle car history. So if you've been dreaming of a classic Mustang, this green machine might just be the pony you've been waiting for. 5. Let's talk about this gorgeous 1964 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $10,500. Now, I've got to tell you, this T-Bird is a real head-turner. First off, we're looking at a coupe model in an eye-catching yellow paint job. Under the hood, you've got that beastly 390 V8 engine, paired with a Holley 4-barrel carb, a combo that's sure to give you that classic American muscle rumble we all love. It's hooked up to an automatic transmission, making it a smooth cruiser for those Sunday drives. Now let's talk miles. The odometer shows 102,000, but the seller's honest about it having rolled over, so we're likely looking at 202,000 miles or more. But don't let that scare you off. These old birds were built to last. The seller's listing this T-Bird in excellent condition, and they've got some solid evidence to back that up. They've done some serious upgrades and maintenance. We're talking new tires, new upholstery on the front seats, and a windshield replacement with fresh weather stripping back in 2019. It's got power steering, power brakes, and power windows, all the luxuries you'd want in a classic cruiser. One of the coolest features? This '64 T-Bird comes with AC that's been converted to R134, which is a big plus for a car of this vintage. No more sweating it out on those hot summer cruises. The seller says it runs and drives nice, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. With a clean title, you shouldn't have any paperwork headaches either. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. While this Thunderbird sounds like a dream, remember that any 57-year-old car is going to need some TLC. It might be worth taking a close look or having a mechanic check it out if you're serious about buying. At $10,500, it's not the cheapest classic out there, but for a well-maintained '64 T-Bird with some nice upgrades, it could be a solid deal. Whether you're looking for a weekend cruiser, a show car, or just a cool piece of Ford history, this Thunderbird could be worth checking out. Remember, cars like this aren't just about getting from A to B. They're about the experience, the nostalgia, and the pure joy of owning a piece of automotive history. So if you've been dreaming of a classic T-Bird, this yellow beauty might just be the one you've been waiting for. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard, turning heads with that iconic Thunderbird style. Now that's what classic car ownership is all about. 6. We've got a real project on our hands here. We're talking about a 1965 Buick Riviera that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $4,500. Now I've got to be straight with you. This isn't a car for the faint of heart or the thin of wallet. Let's start with the good news. This Riviera is a complete car, right down to the hubcaps. That's a big deal for a project car, as hunting down missing parts can be a real headache. Under the hood, you've got a 401 V8 engine, which is a sweet power plant when it's running right. The seller says the engine runs good, and the transmission worked when they last drove it around the neighborhood. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean challenging. The seller's honest about the condition, listing it as fair, and they're not kidding. This Riv has 0 brakes at the moment, and the tires are only good for getting it on and off a trailer. It needs an exhaust system from the rear wheel well back, and while the seller claims the rust is only surface level, you'll want to verify that for yourself. On the plus side, it's got some cool features like factory AC, power windows, a power driver's seat, and a power antenna. But remember, on a car this old, power often means potential electrical gremlins. Here's the kicker. This Riviera doesn't have a title. The seller explains the complicated backstory, but the bottom line is, you'll need to jump through some hoops to get this car properly registered. In Washington, there are options like a bonded title or a 3-year registration process, but if you're out of state, you'll need to do your homework. At $4,500, you're not just buying a car, you're buying a project, a challenge, and potentially a money pit. But for the right person, someone with the skills, patience, and passion for restoration, this could be the start of an amazing journey. The '65 Riviera is a stunning car when restored, with those hidden headlights and sleek lines that scream mid-60s cool. Just remember, folks, this isn't a car you're going to drive home and show off next weekend. It's a long-term project that'll test your mechanical skills, your patience, and probably your relationship with your significant other. But if you're up for the challenge and you've got a soft spot for these old Buicks, this '65 Riviera might just be the project you've been waiting for. Just be prepared for a lot of work, a few or more unexpected surprises, and the satisfaction of bringing a piece of automotive history back to life. Good luck, and may the car gods be with you. 7. We've got a real gem here. Let's talk about this 1979 Dodge Magnum XE that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $6,950. Now, I've got to tell you, this isn't your average late 70s cruiser. This Magnum's got some serious swagger. First off, we're looking at a 2-door hardtop with only 64,141 original miles. That's incredibly low for a 45-year-old car. Under the hood, you've got the reliable 318 V8 with a 2-barrel carb, paired with the bulletproof 904 TorqueFlite automatic transmission. This combo might not win you any drag races, but it'll cruise all day long without breaking a sweat. The seller's been the second owner since '99, using it as a summer cruiser, which explains the low mileage. They've taken good care of this Magnum, adding some choice upgrades over the years. We're talking a sunroof for those perfect summer days, true dual exhaust for a bit more rumble, and BF Goodrich radial TAs for improved handling. Now let's talk aesthetics. The teal-green Sunfire metallic paint, code SG8, is a head-turner, even with some patina on the flat panels. Inside, you're looking at a near-mint original interior. That's rare for a car of this vintage. The sellers added some modern touches like a Grant steering wheel and a Kenwood sound system with an amp and 10-disc changer. Fancy. Mechanically, this Magnum sounds solid. New brakes, Monroe radial-tuned shocks, and the seller reports it starts, drives, shifts, and brakes well with no leaks. They've even got the original window sticker and a folder full of receipts. That's music to any classic car buyer's ears. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. The seller admits it's not a perfect '79, but it sounds pretty darn close. They mention some patina, so expect a few age-related imperfections. But with a clean Michigan title and only 2 owners from new, this Magnum has a lot going for it. At $6,950, it's not the cheapest '79 out there, but for a low-mileage, well-maintained example with some choice upgrades, it could be a solid deal. Whether you're looking for a cool daily driver, a weekend cruiser, or a platform to build your dream late '70s Mopar, this Magnum could be worth checking out. 8. Let's talk about this sweet 1964 Ford Mustang that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $12,300. Now, I've got to tell you, this pony car is a real piece of automotive history. First off, we're looking at one of the original 64.5 models, the car that started the Mustang legend. Under the hood, you've got the original straight-six 170 horsepower engine. Now, it might not be the V8 some folks crave, but let me tell you, these 6 cylinders are known for their reliability and smooth operation. Plus, it's paired with a manual transmission, giving you that classic driving experience that's hard to beat. The seller's listing this Mustang in good condition, and they've got some solid evidence to back that up. They claim it's clean with no rust or damage. That's a big deal for a car pushing 60 years old. They've also done some minor modifications and upgrades that should help keep this pony running strong. We're talking a new exhaust, new carburetor, new radiator, and they've added an electric fuel pump. They've also thrown on some new tires and rims, along with air shocks. Now let's talk miles. The odometer shows 27,000 miles, But here's the catch. The seller admits the odometer is broken, so we're likely looking at 127,000 miles or more. But hey, that's not bad for a car of this vintage. One cool detail, it comes with the original hubcaps, plus car and tire covers. That's a nice touch for preserving this piece of history when it's not out cruising the streets. The yellow paint job should make this Mustang stand out in a crowd, and with a clean title, you shouldn't have any paperwork headaches. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. While this Mustang sounds like it's in pretty good shape, remember that any 60-year-old car is going to need some TLC. It might be worth taking a close look or having a mechanic check it out if you're serious about buying. At $12,300, it's not the cheapest classic out there. But for a rust-free 64.5 Mustang with some nice upgrades, it could be a solid deal. Whether you're looking for a weekend cruiser, a show car project, or just a cool piece of Ford history, this Mustang could be worth checking out. Remember, cars like this aren't just about getting from A to B. They're about the experience, the nostalgia, and the pure joy of owning a piece of automotive history. So if you've been dreaming of an early Mustang, this yellow beauty might just be the pony you've been waiting for. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard, turning heads with that iconic Mustang style. Now that's what classic car ownership is all about. 9. Let me tell you about this absolutely stunning 1985 Chrysler LeBaron convertible that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $15,000. Now, I've got to say, this isn't your average 80s ride. This LeBaron is in a league of its own. First off, we're talking about a convertible model in an eye-catching red exterior with a classy white leather interior. That color combo is just screaming for a cruise down the beach boulevard. But here's where it gets really interesting. This baby's got a turbo. That's right, we're not dealing with your run-of-the-mill LeBaron here, folks. Now hold on to your hats because the odometer shows just 39,568 original miles. You read that right. This car has barely been driven. The seller claims they're only the second owner and have kept it stored, which explains the incredibly low mileage. But wait, it gets better. The seller describes this LeBaron as being in like-new condition. They say it's all original, right down to the paperwork and manual. That's a big deal for collectors who value authenticity. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. At $15,000, this is definitely on the high end for a 1985 LeBaron. But we're not talking about just any LeBaron here. We're talking about a turbo convertible with incredibly low miles in what sounds like exceptional condition. For the right collector or enthusiast, this could be a real gem. Remember, cars like this aren't just about getting from A to B, they're about preserving a piece of automotive history. This LeBaron is a time capsule from the mid-80s, a reminder of an era when Chrysler was pushing the boundaries with turbocharging and convertibles were making a comeback. Just imagine cruising down the street, top down, with that turbocharged engine purring away. You'd be turning heads not just because of the classic styling, but because it's rare to see one of these in such pristine condition. If you're a fan of 80s cars, or if you've got a soft spot for Chryslers of this era, this 1985 LeBaron convertible could be the car you've been dreaming of. The seller says you must see to appreciate, and I've got to agree. A car like this doesn't come along every day. So if you've got $15,000 burning a hole in your pocket and you want a piece of 80s automotive history that looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor, this LeBaron might just be the ticket. Just be prepared for everyone at the car show to ask, is this the LeBaron that belonged to John Voight? Seinfeld fans, you know what I'm talking about. 10. Let's talk about this sweet 1977 Plymouth Fury Sport that's currently turning heads on Craigslist for $7,000. Now, I've got to tell you, this isn't your average 70s land yacht. This Fury's got some serious star power. First off, we're looking at a coupe model in white, which is always a classy choice. Under the hood, you've got a beefy 400 big block V8 engine, a power plant that's pure American muscle. The seller's not kidding when they call it a pure American machine. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This Fury has been a movie star. It's been featured as a picture car in Straight Outta Compton and Behind the Candelabra. How cool is that? You could be driving around in a piece of Hollywood history. The seller's been busy with this Fury, and it shows. They've done a ton of recent work including an oil change, new oil pump, valve gasket replacement, new fuel pump, new shocks, and more. That's a lot of the unglamorous but absolutely crucial stuff that can make or break a classic car experience. Now let's talk miles. The odometer shows 47,000 miles, but the seller's honest about it having rolled over. So we're likely looking at 147,000 miles or more. But hey, these old Plymouths were built tough, so with all the recent work, it could have plenty of life left in it. The seller describes the interior as being in great condition, with the exception of some wear on the driver's seat, which is pretty normal for a car of this age. They're upfront about some rust on the exterior, particularly on the trunk. That's something you'll want to check out in person if you're serious about buying. One big plus, it's been smogged and registered through March 2025. That's a nice chunk of time where you won't have to worry about those headaches. At $7,000, it's not the cheapest Fury out there, but considering its movie star status and all the recent work, it could be a solid deal for someone looking for a classic Mopar with a bit of Hollywood flair. It's got a clean title too, which is always a plus. Now, I always like to keep it real with you folks. While this Fury sounds like it's in pretty good shape for its age, remember that any 45-year-old car is going to need ongoing TLC. It might be worth taking a close look or having a mechanic check it out if you're serious about buying. Whether you're looking for a cool daily driver, a weekend cruiser, or a conversation piece with a Hollywood connection, this '77 Fury Sport could be worth checking out. Just imagine cruising down the boulevard in this classic piece of American iron, turning heads and maybe even getting asked, "Wasn't that car in a movie?" That's what the classic car hobby is all about. 11. Let's talk about this 1971 Buick Skylark custom convertible that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $10,000. Now I've got to be straight with you. This isn't a show car, but it's got potential written all over it. First off, we're looking at a pretty rare bird here. The seller mentions it's one of only 3,993 made in '71, which makes it a cool piece of Buick history. Under the hood, you've got a Buick 350 V8 with a 4-barrel carb, paired with a 350 automatic transmission, a classic combo that should give you that smooth, torquey feel we all love in these old cruisers. Now, the seller's honest about the condition, listing it as fair, so we know we're dealing with a project car here. But here's the good news. They say it runs, drives, and stops. That's a solid starting point for any restoration project. They also mention solid floors and frame, which is huge for a car of this vintage. However, they do note that the trunk pan is rusty, so that's something you'll want to address sooner rather than later. The odometer shows 12,000 miles, but the seller's upfront about it having rolled over, so we're likely looking at 112,000 miles or more. But hey, these old Buicks were built tough. On the plus side, it's got some nice upgrades. We're talking a new windshield, new mufflers on the dual exhaust, and new brakes. It's sitting on factory road wheels with BF Goodrich radial TA tires, which should give it a nice stance and improved handling over the original rubber. The original burnished cinnamon color is still present, which is cool if you're going for originality. Being a convertible, it's got that extra cool factor. Just imagine cruising with the top down on a nice summer day. At $10,000, it's not the cheapest project car out there, but for a rare convertible Skylark with some recent work done, it could be a decent starting point. It's got a clear title, which is always a plus when dealing with older cars. Now, I've got to level with you. This Skylark needs work. It's not something you're going to drive home and show off at the next cruise night. But for the right person, someone with the skills and patience for a restoration project, this could be a really cool car. Remember folks, cars like this are more than just transportation. They're time machines, connecting us to an era of big engines, bold designs, and the raw essence of American automotive passion. This '71 Skylark might be rough around the edges now, but with the right owner, it could be the start of an amazing restoration journey. So, if you're up for the challenge and have always wanted a classic Buick convertible, why not give this Skylark a look? It might just be the project you've been waiting for. 12. All right, let's dive deeper into this '81 Corvette, because there's definitely more to unpack here. You know, the C3 generation of Corvettes, which this beauty belongs to, has a special place in automotive history. By 1981, Chevy had really refined the design, and these cars were starting to incorporate more modern tech while still keeping that classic Corvette charm. Now let's talk about what you're getting with this particular ride. The 40,000-mile odometer reading is pretty impressive for a car that's pushing 42 years old. That low mileage could mean the engine and transmission haven't seen as much wear and tear as you might expect, which is definitely a plus. The fresh paint job in red is a great starting point for restoration. Red Corvettes are iconic, and this new coat will help protect the body from rust and corrosion. However, and I want to be totally upfront here, a fresh paint job can sometimes hide underlying issues, so you'll want to give the body a thorough inspection. Now, about that interior, it needs work, no doubt about it. But here's the silver lining. This gives you the opportunity to customize it to your liking. Want to keep it period correct? Go for it. Fancy a more modern touch? The world's your oyster. Just be prepared for some time and expense in getting it sorted. The automatic transmission might not be everyone's cup of tea. Some Corvette purists prefer a manual. But it does make for easier cruising, especially in traffic. One thing to keep in mind, 1981 was a transition year for Corvette engines. They had moved production from St. Louis to Bowling Green, and were using a computer-controlled engine management system. This was cutting-edge tech at the time, but it can be a bit finicky today. You might want to budget for some potential engine work or updates. The seller mentioning it as an easy project to finish up is subjective. Depending on your skill level and the actual condition of the car, it could be relatively straightforward or more involved. But that's part of the fun of classic car ownership, right? And hey, the possibility of trading for a 7173 Buick Riviera is intriguing. Those boats are classics in their own right, with those iconic boat tail designs. It shows the seller has good taste. 13. We're diving into a real classic gem that's popped up on Craigslist, a 1963 Plymouth Belvedere, and let me tell you, this one's got me excited. All right, let's break it down. This beauty is currently on the market for $9,000, which honestly seems pretty fair for what you're getting. We're looking at a white sedan with that iconic 60s styling that just oozes cool. Under the hood, you've got a V8 318 engine, which was a solid, reliable power plant back in the day, and still has plenty of get up and go. Now, here's something that'll make you grin. It's got a push-button transmission. That's right, none of that boring stick-on-the-column stuff. This was cutting-edge tech back in '63, and it's just so darn fun to use. The seller says it's in good condition, and I've got to say, the details seem to back that up. With 100,000 miles on the clock, it's clearly been driven and enjoyed, but that's not outrageous for a car of this vintage. The real kicker? New tires and brakes. That's a big plus in my book. It shows the owner's been taking care of the important stuff. They're also claiming it runs great, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. A clean title is the cherry on top. No hassles with paperwork here, folks. Now, I always like to keep it real with you guys. While this Belvedere sounds like it's in pretty good shape, remember that any car from 1963 is going to need some TLC. You might be looking at some maintenance and maybe a few replacement parts down the line. But hey, that's part of the joy of classic car ownership, right? Overall, this '63 Plymouth Belvedere looks like a solid buy for someone wanting to dip their toes into the classic car world. It's got style, it's got that awesome push-button transmission, and it seems to be in good running condition. Whether you're looking to cruise to car shows or just turn heads on your Sunday drive, this Belvedere could be your ticket to vintage coolness. So, if you've been dreaming of owning a piece of American automotive history, this might just be your chance. Just imagine yourself behind that big old steering wheel, pushing those buttons and cruising down the street in pure '60s style. Now that's what I call living the dream. 14. We're taking a look at a real gem, a 1968 Mercury Cougar XR7 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $15,000. Let me tell you, this cat's got some serious potential. First off, we're dealing with an XR7 model here, which was the luxury trim level for the Cougar. These cars were Mercury's answer to the Mustang, offering a bit more refinement and style. Under the hood, we've got a 289 cubic inch V8, which the seller mentions has a mild cam. That should give it a nice, lopey idle and a bit more punch than stock. Paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, this Cougar should be a blast to drive. Now, let's talk about condition. The seller's being pretty upfront, which I appreciate. The car was repainted about 20 years ago, and the interior was refreshed at the same time. That's good news, but it also means this work is 2 decades old now. The upholstery is described as being in great condition, and the vinyl top is said to be excellent, both big pluses for a car of this age. However, there are some issues to be aware of. The seller mentions rock chips and, more concerning, some bubbling in the paint on the hood. This could be a sign of rust underneath, so that's definitely something you'd want to check out in person. The odometer is also broken and has rolled over, so the true mileage is unknown. On the bright side, the car runs and drives well, and it's been garage kept since its restoration. That's crucial for preserving these classics. Now let's talk value. At $15,000, this Cougar is priced in the middle range for these models. It's not a show car, but it's not a basket case either. It seems like a solid driver quality classic that you could enjoy while gradually improving. If you're in the market for a classic pony car with a bit more luxury than a Mustang, this Cougar could be a great option. The 289 4-speed combo is desirable, and the XR7 trim adds some nice touches. Just be sure to inspect that hood carefully, and maybe budget for some paint work down the line. Remember folks, cars like this are more than just transportation. They're time machines that take us back to the glory days of American muscle. This '68 Cougar XR7 represents a unique moment in automotive history, blending performance with luxury in a way that's distinctly Mercury. 15. Alright, let's dive deeper into this 1972 Pontiac Le Mans that's currently listed on Craigslist for $7,500. As a true car enthusiast, I've got to say this classic muscle car has caught my attention, but it's important to approach it with realistic expectations. The Le Mans is powered by a Pontiac 350 V8 engine, which was a solid power plant for its time. Paired with an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, this setup should provide that quintessential muscle car experience we all crave. The odometer reading of 100,000 miles isn't too concerning for a vehicle of this age, but it does suggest that the car has seen its fair share of use over the years. The red paint job is always an eye-catcher on classic cars, but given the car's age and condition, I wouldn't be surprised if it needs some attention. The seller describes the overall condition as good, which is promising, but we need to take that with a grain of salt, considering the other details provided. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The seller mentions that the car has been sitting for a few years and recommends trailering at home. This is a clear indication that the Le Mans isn't in prime driving condition. While it's said to run and drive, there's likely a fair amount of work needed to make it roadworthy and reliable. The good news is that it comes with a clean title, which can save you from potential headaches down the line. However, potential buyers should be prepared for a project. This Le Mans will likely need a thorough inspection and probably some significant mechanical work. We're talking about possible issues with the fuel system, brakes, suspension, and electrical components. All common problems in cars that have been sitting for extended periods. For the right person, this could be an exciting opportunity to restore a piece of American automotive history. The 1972 Le Mans is a desirable model, and with some hard work and investment, it could be transformed into a stunning classic. However, it's crucial to go into this with open eyes. The $7,500 asking price is just the beginning. You'll need to factor in the cost of parts, potential professional labor, and the time you'll spend bringing this car back to life. In conclusion, this 1972 Pontiac Le Mans presents an intriguing opportunity for classic car enthusiasts who aren't afraid of a challenge. It's not a turnkey solution for someone looking to immediately hit the road in a vintage muscle car, but for those with the patience, skills, and resources to invest in a restoration project, it could be a rewarding journey. Just remember, with classic cars like this, It's always wise to inspect thoroughly before making a decision. The path to bringing this Le Mans back to its former glory won't be easy, but for the right person, it could be incredibly satisfying. 16. We're taking a look at a real gem on Craigslist, a 1964 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs at $10,000. Let me tell you, this isn't just any old T-Bird. This one's got some serious potential. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and from what I can see, they're not exaggerating. With only 73,900 miles on the odometer, this Thunderbird has clearly been well cared for over its 60-year lifespan. The blue paint looks sharp, and being a Colorado car, it's managed to avoid the rust issues that plague many classics from wetter climates. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. This T-Bird has had some significant upgrades that really bring it into the 21st century. We're talking a new Holly Sniper fuel injection system, new fuel pump, new gas tank, and new rear mufflers. The suspension has been completely refreshed with new front and rear springs, plus air shocks in the rear. And here's a big one. The automatic transmission has been recently rebuilt. That's a major expense taken care of right there. The interior is described as quite nice and in unrestored condition, which is fantastic for those who appreciate originality. The body is straight, which is always a plus on a car of this vintage. One thing that really caught my attention is the mention of little buildup in the upper valve train. That's a great sign of a well-maintained engine. Now, it's not all perfect. The air conditioning pump is non-operational, and the seller suggests replacing it with a vintage air system. That's something to factor into your budget if you're looking to cruise in comfort during those hot summer months. Overall, this 1964 Thunderbird seems to be a solid buy at $10,000. It's got the classic looks, the modern upgrades where it counts, and it's been well maintained. Sure, you might need to put a bit more money into it for the AC, but that's par for the course with classic cars. For anyone looking to get into the classic car scene or add to their collection, this T-Bird could be a great option. It's drivable as is, but also has room for further restoration if that's your thing. Remember though, always inspect a classic car in person before making a purchase. And don't be afraid to negotiate. The seller did say OBO after all. 17. Let's dive deeper into this 1968 Ford Galaxy 500. As a classic car enthusiast, I can tell you that finding a rust-free example of a car from this era is like striking gold, especially considering its Colorado origins, where the dry climate has been kind to its body. The pebble beige exterior paired with the black cloth vinyl interior is a classic color combination that really speaks to the era. It's worth noting that this level of originality, especially in the paint, can be more valuable to some collectors than a fresh respray. Now let's talk about that 390 cubic inch V8. This engine was a popular choice in the Galaxy line, offering a good balance of power and drivability. The two-barrel carburetor version in this car, while not as powerful as its four-barrel siblings, still provides ample power for cruising and is generally easier to keep in tune. The fact that the seller has rebuilt the Autolite 2100 carburetor is a big plus, as these can be finicky if not properly maintained. The FMX automatic transmission is a robust unit, known for its durability. Paired with the 2.75.1 rear end, this setup is ideal for highway cruising, which explains why the seller reports comfortable cruising at 75 mph. This gearing also contributes to the respectable 15 mpg fuel economy the seller is experiencing. One of the most intriguing aspects of this car is its reported low mileage. At 61,000 miles, this Galaxy has barely broken in, considering these cars were built to last. The seller's claim about the originality of many replaced parts adds credibility to the mileage claim. However, as with any classic car purchase, it's always wise to verify such claims if possible. The list of recent work done on the car is impressive. New brakes all around, including wheel cylinders and repacked front bearings, are crucial safety items. The new tires, distributor, and various hoses show that the seller has been proactive in addressing wear items and potential failure points. However, it's important to address the issues the seller has honestly disclosed. The oil leak from the rear main seal is a common problem in older cars, and can be a messy and somewhat expensive repair if you decide to address it. The power steering leak is another typical issue in classics of this age. While these aren't deal breakers, they're certainly factors to consider in your purchase decision and future maintenance plans. 18. We're taking a look at a 1978 Ford Mustang that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,500. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This one's got me a bit conflicted. Let's start with the positives. The seller describes this Mustang as super clean inside and out, and claims it's all original with just 84,000 miles on the clock. That's relatively low mileage for a car that's over 4 decades old, which is definitely a plus. It's also got a clean title, is currently registered, and has just passed a smog test, which means it's ready to hit the road. The 78 Mustang comes with a V8 engine, rear-wheel drive, and an automatic transmission, a classic American muscle car setup. The seller mentions that lots of new parts have been added, which could be a good thing, depending on what exactly has been replaced. However, I've got to be honest with you folks, the asking price of $12,500 seems pretty steep for a 1978 Mustang, even in excellent condition. The second-generation Mustangs, often referred to as the Mustang II, aren't typically as sought after as their predecessors or the Fox body Mustangs that followed. Without more detailed information or photos, it's hard to justify that price tag. We don't know what trim level this Mustang is, what specific V8 engine it has, or what those new parts are. These details can significantly affect the car's value. Also, while the seller describes the condition as excellent, we should take that with a grain of salt without seeing detailed photos or an in-person inspection. Even well-maintained cars from the 70s often need some work due to their age. So here's my take. If you're a die-hard fan of the Mustang II, and this one truly is in immaculate, all-original condition, it might be worth considering. But for most classic Mustang enthusiasts, there are likely better options out there for $12,500. If you're interested, I'd strongly recommend seeing the car in person, getting a detailed list of the new parts and any restoration work done, and maybe even getting a professional inspection. And don't be afraid to negotiate. The seller did say OBO, or best offer after all. 19. We're taking a look at a 1977 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,500. Now, let me give you the lowdown on this big bird from the 70s. First off, we're dealing with a 7th-generation T-Bird here, which is known for its massive size and luxurious styling. This particular example is sporting a 351 cubic inch V8 under that long hood, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. That's a solid powertrain combo for cruising and comfort. The seller is pretty enthusiastic about this car's condition, describing it as a great-looking classic car in great shape for its age. They claim the body is nice and straight, which is always good to hear for a car over 40 years old. With 82,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear this T-Bird has been driven, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's been well maintained. One of the standout features mentioned is the air conditioning. The seller emphasizes that the AC blows cold, which is a big plus for a car of this vintage. We've also got power brakes, power steering, and disc brakes, all of which contribute to a more modern driving experience. The interior is described as being in great shape, which is promising. These Thunderbirds were known for their plush interiors, so if it's well preserved, that's a significant selling point. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. While this T-Bird sounds like it's in good condition, the asking price of $12,500 is on the high side for a 77 Thunderbird. These cars aren't typically the most sought-after classics, and values can vary widely based on condition and options. That being said, if this car is truly as nice as the seller describes, with a great running engine, cold AC, and a well-preserved interior, it could be a comfortable and eye-catching cruiser for someone who appreciates the 70s automotive aesthetic. As always, I'd strongly recommend seeing the car in person before making any decisions. Check for any signs of rust, especially in the lower body panels and floor pans. Test all the electrical systems and make sure that V8 runs as smoothly as claimed. Remember, folks, when you're dealing with classic cars, especially from the 70s, you're not just buying a vehicle, you're buying an experience. This Thunderbird represents a specific era in American automotive history, and for the right buyer, it could be a fantastic addition to their collection. 20. We're diving into a real gem from the early 60s, a 1963 Ford Galaxy 500 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,750. Let me tell you, this one's got me pretty excited. First off, we're looking at a clean, rust-free four-door sedan. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, four-door? Pass. But hold on a second. These big Ford sedans from the 60s have a charm all their own, and they're becoming increasingly rare in good condition. The seller describes both the exterior and interior as being in great condition and claims it's all original. That's music to a classic car lover's ears. However, it's worth noting that the odometer has rolled over, so the true mileage is unknown. The current reading of 2,786 miles is likely 102,786 or even 202,786, something to keep in mind. Under the hood, we've got a 289 V8, which is a great engine. It's been upgraded with electronic ignition for better reliability, and it's sporting an Edelbrock 4-barrel carb and intake manifold. These upgrades should give it a bit more pep than stock, while still maintaining that classic Ford V8 character. The Cruise-O-Matic automatic transmission is a solid, reliable unit that should provide smooth shifts. One of the big selling points here is the newly fitted front power disc brake conversion. This is a huge upgrade in terms of safety and drivability, bringing the stopping power more in line with modern cars. New rear wheel cylinders and handbrake mechanism round out the brake overhaul. The seller is also including a bunch of spare parts, which is always a nice bonus with a classic car. Original drums, brake shoes, valve covers, and more. These could come in handy down the road. Now let's talk price. At $12,750, it's not cheap, but it's not outrageous either for a clean, rust-free Galaxy 500 in excellent condition. The brake upgrades alone add significant value. However, as always, I'd strongly recommend an in-person inspection before making any decisions. Check for any hidden rust, verify the condition of the interior, and make sure all those upgrades were done properly. Overall, this '63 Galaxy 500 seems like a solid buy for someone looking for a classic cruiser that's ready to hit the road. It's got the looks, the power, and the upgrades to make it a comfortable and reliable classic driver. Plus, with 4 doors, you can bring the whole family along for the ride.